in the public gallery and anyone watching the meeting via the webcast. To the members of the public in the gallery, I would like to remind you that this planning meeting is being broadcast live over the internet, so there is no need for any other filming of the meeting to take place. This meeting is available to view online now and in the future. Committee members, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can all mobile phones and other noisy devices be put on silent. If there is an emergency alarm, please follow the green signs and go to the ground floor of the Civic Centre car park. I'd now like all the officers to introduce themselves, please, starting with my far right. Oh, my name's Norma Parish, by the way. Thank you.
My name's Polly Ellis. I'm solicitor for the council.
I'm Rachel Beale, Senior Business Support Officer.
Richard Lewis, Head of Planning for the Council.
Paul Wheeldon, Highway Development Control to Council.
Helen Smith, Principal Planner, Development Management.
Norman Jones, Team Leader, Applications.
Thank you. Item 1, attendance. Would you all please register in the usual way, please? Rachel, any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillors John Hawler, Faye Jones, Sue Marson, Ron Burnett and Len Constance.
Are there any other apologies that members might be aware of? No? Thank you. 2, declarations of interest. Over to Polly, please.
I remind members that you need to complete the declaration of interest form in the attendance register folder if you're declaring an interest in any application. The following interests have been declared. Councillor Norma Parish is declaring a personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 7, as she's a member of Pontypool Community Council who've been consulted on the application. Councillor Gaynor James declares a personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 7 as a member of Pontypool Community Council who've been consulted on the application. And Councillor Richard Overton declares a personal non-prejudicial interest in agenda item 7 as member of Pontypool Community Council who've been consulted on the application. If there are any other declarations, they should be entered into the attendance register.
Thank you. Agenda item 3. Minutes of a meeting of the Planning Committee on Tuesday, 26th of September 2017. And they're on pages 5 to 8. We'll go through it page by page for accuracy. Page 5, page 6, page 7, and page 8. Would someone move their correct record? Thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Could we have a show of hands? Everybody in agreement? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on these minutes before we move on? No? Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you. Where are we? 4. It's not working. Right. Item 4. And this is a summary of a planning appeals decision, and it's on pages 13 and 14, and this is for members' information. The appeal was dismissed. Are there any questions or comments on this planning appeal? No? Yes, Councillor?
Sorry. I move we note it.
Thank you.
I've been awake, so.
Item agenda 5, and this is another summary of a planning appeal which has been decided and dismissed, and it's on pages 15 and 16. The same applies. Any questions or comments? Would someone...
Seconded.
We all agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 6. It's not moving. It's 5, isn't it? Sorry for the delay. The item isn't being moved on for the webcasting. Okay, you can go ahead now. Item agenda 6, which is another summary of planning appeal, and that was dismissed as well on pages 17 and 18. Anyone like to move this?
I move that, Chair. Can we note that?
Thank you. You all agree to note the information? Thank you. Right, let's see if it'll move on now. Right, we can move on. Agenda item 7, which is a planning application number 17/P/0585. And the proposal is for demolition of Ysgol Panteg Primary School to allow for the construction of 7 supported living flats with ancillary staff bedroom, public car parking and associated works. And the site is at Ysgol Panteg Primary School, Oxford Street, Griffithstown, Pontypool, and it's on pages 19 to 38. And Helen Smith is going to give us a presentation. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application relates to the former Ysgol Panteg School in Griffithstown, which has been recently vacated following construction of the new Ysgol Panteg just down the road. The application is for 2 blocks of residential units, totalling 7 units for supported living. The accommodation will also include some staff accommodation, so that they can provide 24-hour care for the residents. The application requires utilising the existing access off Hill Street into the school car park, as it is at the moment. But this area of car park will be set out and providing public car park for the shoppers and the residents of Griffithstown. Access will be coming in through here to serve the parking areas for the new properties. Obviously, the application also includes the demolition of the two schools, which is the main old stone building, but also the more recently flat-roofed nursery building. Planning permission is not required for the demolition of the building. There are permitted development rights for buildings to be demolished, provided that they're not listed or not in conservation areas. There has been a significant number of objections from a previous application to demolish the schools due to the loss of this attractive stone building, which has a lot of importance for local people. Unfortunately, the only issue we can consider in terms of demolition is the method of demolition and how the land is reinstated. So go back to the application itself. The schools will be demolished, and then 2 blocks will be, this is block 1 and block 2. Because of the different levels in the site, the element facing onto Oxford Street will be single-storey, and then the elements to the rear will be 2-storey. So this here we have the first floor level, which is the ground floor level from Oxford Street. They are setting it back from the back edge of the pavement and also providing some extra car parking from the front. These are the properties, the terrace dwellings opposite the site and just to the south. So this is an elevation of block 1 from Oxford Street, and then the elevation from the rear. You can see here the differences in the levels. This is Oxford Street here with the front gardens and the parking areas. So this is the elevation that will front onto that street. This is block 2, again, practically identical design. The interiors are slightly different. One block has 3 flats and some staff accommodation. And then the second block has 4 flats with, again, additional staff ancillary accommodation. Here are the street scene elevations. Again, this is from Oxford Street, and then this is viewed from the rear. Here we have some 3D visualisations provided by the applicant. Here you're looking down Oxford Street with the terraces further down. You can see that they've been set back from the highway. The design has been proposed to reflect some of the characteristics of the original school building. And again, on the rear, here you have some shared balconies for residents as a communal area. And obviously to the rear, it's going to be communal garden areas for the residents. Again, these just show the sloping nature of the site and the earthworks required. There are significant earthworks required to create this property. However, we are concerned about some impact on residents during the construction phase. We have proposed a condition requiring a construction environment management plan to ensure that we can strictly control where the workers park, where the construction traffic will go and which route they will take. And again, these are some more sections. This is the nearest property that's affected. However, as you can see, because it's at a much lower level, it's more of a single-storey element that's adjacent to this dwelling. Here we have some photographs. This is on the corner of Oxford Street and Hill Street. As you can see, it's obviously been boarded up and used for some time. Some more photographs. This is a view from Hill Street, showing the steeply sloping nature of the site and the raised parking and yard area. This boundary wall is to be retained. And this is the elevation from Park Street to the rear. Originally, the application included a close boarding fence along here, but we've asked the applicants to change it to railings, which is more in keeping to that street scene. There will be a fence in between the proposed development and the public car park to provide an element of privacy for the residents. But obviously, privacy is not so much of an issue in this location because of the height in comparison to the adjacent road. And we have another view of Park Street. Here's the nearest property. This is the nursery building, which is to be demolished. This is a kitchen window, but as explained earlier and in my report, there are 8 metres from the kitchen window to the new building, but obviously the building is not 2-storey at this point, so we're satisfied with that relationship. And here's a photograph of the photograph of the nursery building that's to be demolished as well. Here's a view looking down towards the other end of Oxford Street. And so that's the whole building. The nursery building is in this location here. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Are there any questions from members? Steve?
In one particular, in a residential amenity on page 33, there's quite a close proximity of windows from the one building to the next. Is that an issue, or will it be frosted glass, or because there seems quite a close proximity from one building across the way to the new development?
Yeah, if I could take you back to the site layout. Bear with me a second. That one's better. Right. Here we have the blocks. That photograph I just showed you of that kitchen window, that's in this location here. So there is 8 metres between here and here, but there are some windows, but they're secondary windows, and we've attached a condition for them to be obscure glaze, so there's no direct overlooking. But also, in terms of any overbearing impact, because it's 8 metres away, plus it's actually set back from the roadway, that relationship, the outlook is still over partly landscaped area. You will have, obviously, see the top end of the building from there, but we felt that relation is acceptable and it doesn't have an overbearing impact. And obviously the condition in terms of the obscure glazing prevents any loss of privacy. In terms of the properties opposite, Block 1, obviously you've got the other school building in this location. Then you've got these properties on Oxford Street. The distance between here and here is 14 metres. We felt that is acceptable in this instance, given that on the front elevations of Oxford Street, they consist of one front room window and the front door. And in actual fact, if you can look at the relationship that's on the rest of the terrace of the street, it's actually a better relationship than the current situation.
Stuart?
Yes, I know this property reasonably well, having cycled up and down it over the years a few times. The thing that strikes you about the quality of that streetscape, you say it's not a conservation area, but it's, I presume, but like most of that area, it's fairly homogenised in the sense that you're getting a feel for it, terraced houses, shops, school buildings, and you say in your report here that it's it all blends in because that's what it's done over 100 odd years. My major concern is that we don't, apart from that, and you obviously said that in your report to some extent, railings, not fences. Are we going to be able to maintain that with this application? That's my part of the concern. I've got another bit as well to go. That obviously if we depart from that landscaping, etc., and the buildings, are the bricks, etc., going to be blended in? Because although it's not a conservation area, it does seem sensible to have something that blends in. It does seem by the building design you're actually going for that, something that replicates what the school building was. Because you said, as somebody said in this report, it does look very similar, same skyline and all that sort of thing. That's number one question. But obviously about landscaping as well, if you can put trees and things in there, whether that's sympathetic. I also have a problem, as you've probably heard me before on this subject, fences, hedges and all the rest. So in this location, I believe it's stone walls, isn't it, round there? Or brick walls. And whether that's something we could, possibly the applicant could look at if they've got them there, because obviously, railings certainly is a good idea. The other thing that I did pick up was bats, and you seem to have put quite a bit of stipulation in there. Could you have some explanation on that one as well, please?
Yes, okay. In terms of the materials, we've put a condition on asking for samples of materials, because obviously it's a high quality design building, and if you don't use the correct materials, that quality can be lost. So, we will be ensuring that, the materials are high quality and suitable for that location. In terms of, so what was the first issue? Secondly was the fences. Obviously the applicants have agreed to put the railings on the rear elevation, and those are shown on the approved plans. So we can secure that in terms of implementation of the approved plans. In terms of bats, there are bats in the old school building, and for the demolition of the building, the applicants have to get a protected species licence from the Welsh Government to demolish the building. They put forward methods and mitigation measures for those bats, which include placing bat boxes on the building itself. Our ecologist is satisfied that that's appropriate, and obviously they still have to have the licence from the Welsh Government and NRW to move the bats. and we've secured that, and also secured in a demolition method statement certain provisions in terms of timings, to make sure there's no adverse impact on bats. But yeah, we're satisfied that it's with the mitigation measures for the bats, the bats will not be adversely affected.
Yes, Stuart?
Yeah. As far as the car park, you are suggesting trees in there as well, are you?
Yes, let me just... yeah, there are some... There we go. Yeah, there are some landscaping. Obviously, being a car park, most of it is hard standing. However, there are some areas where they are proposing landscaping, and also in the rear garden area. But also in this area here, where they're setting the buildings back from the street scene, there will be some hedge planting and another tree there, so that there is some landscaping proposed.
Yes, Steve?
On the parking issue, with the extra parking spaces provided for the residents, how is that going to be pedestrianised so it's easy access for them to get back and forth to their vehicles?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. Can you turn to the car park layout, Helen? This is in what you would call a sort of shared surface area where you've got all the parking for the residents in that particular area. The stone walls are built tight up against the roads with only small verges there. Awful difficult to provide anything different in that particular area without going to huge expense. The parking area has been there for quite a long time actually, and businesses as well use that particular car park as well, don't they? So we try to encourage that in having these car parking areas as close as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes we'd like to provide footways to lots of places, but in areas such as Griffithstown, it's also difficult without going to major expense. I'm satisfied that would work satisfactorily. It has worked in the past. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Any other questions or comments from members? Yes, Hugh?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, it's just a quick question on the car parking. The separate car parking for the residents and the staff, that purple line on the plan there, demarcating the edge between the parking that's going to be made available, additional overspill parking that's being made available to residents, is that actually one of the stone walls in there that's marked in purple? The question I was going to ask is what's going to stop the residents from taking the non-residents using residents and staff car parking?
Yes. Highways Officer, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a case of management of the site itself. You'll note that there is a single occupier of this site. I think it was it Mellin or Mellin, and they manage their own sites in effect. To be honest, it's a good proposal because it's very rare that a developer that has land makes available space for others to use. So, this is a situation that is quite unique, to be honest, and quite good in that there is this area that can be used by the public, and there are areas more within the development itself that can be used by the residents. And again, it's down to good management of a site, and Mellin tend to manage their sites well. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet, do you want to come in?
Hello. It's mainly an observation. This facility is very similar to the ones that just opened at Kennard in Blaenavon, and I'm quite disappointed because when I went to visit those at the Kennard, there were some disabled people there, and they weren't really suitable. Some of the doorways weren't wide enough with people with wheelchairs, and I would have liked to thought that Mellin, although they're working with the United in Belvin would have consulted some disabled people and disabled groups for their particular concerns. It's just an observation.
Would you like to comment on the size of the doorways? Thank you.
Yes, just to, on the floor, I haven't got the floor plans on the presentation, but the floor plans of the building itself does show how wheelchairs can access and manoeuvre in, and the bathrooms are big enough, so Melon have given thought to that.
A lady came in on a wheelchair and it just barely managed to get through the door. So it was concerns that were made aware to me, and I'd like to think that that wouldn't happen in future developments. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Helen. Any more questions, comments? Would somebody like to make a proposal? Steve? Yeah, would you like to put your mic on?
I propose that we move the application.
That's for approval, right.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Right, you all ready to vote? Right, can we have a show of hands? I think that's everyone. Thank you. This application has been approved. And that's the end of the agenda for today. Thank you all for attending, committee members and officers. Thank you all for your attendance, and we'll close the meeting. Thank you.